Good morning. Grab your coffee and lean in, because we need to talk about your biggest asset and the invisible force that's currently eating it alive. For decades, the American dream had a very specific zip code. It was the Sun Belt: Phoenix, Las Vegas, Miami. The promised land of swimming pools and forever rising equity. But in 2026, that dream is hitting a wall, and it's a wall made of pure, unadulterated heat. Here's the number that should stop you mid-sip. Plus 1.58 degrees Celsius. That's the global surface temperature anomaly we're living with right now. It sounds small, right? A rounding error. But on July 22, 2024, it manifested as the hottest day in recorded history. It wasn't just a weather event, it was a structural shift. 12 US states immediately triggered mandatory heat work protocols. Think about that. The economy literally had to pause because the air itself became a liability. I know what you're thinking. It's just a hot summer? I'll just turn up the AC. Well, that's exactly where the trap snaps shut. We've spent 40 years building wealth in places where human life is only possible through a mechanical umbilical cord. And right now, that cord is starting to fray. Let that sink in. For millions of homeowners, the forever rising value of their property is suddenly hitting a ceiling made of glass and triple-digit temperatures. If you're holding a mortgage in a high heat zone, you aren't just betting on real estate anymore. You're betting against the sun? And honestly, the sun has a much bigger balance sheet than you do. So here's the question. If these cities are supposedly the future of American growth, why are the world's 3 largest insurers quietly packing their bags and leaving for good? They've cited something they call unmodelable thermal volatility. That's insurance speak for, we have no idea how much this is going to cost, but we know it's more than you can pay. Okay, let's talk about the real problem. Let's talk about the grid. I want you to think of the power grid like a crowded highway during rush hour. Every single car on that highway is an air conditioner. When the temperature hits 110, everyone tries to merge into the fast lane at the exact same time. And in the old days, the highway just slowed down. But today, the highway is melting. We're looking at an average of 9.4 hours of grid interruptions per year. That's the CD index, and it's up 21% in just 3 years. When the Great Houston Brownout hit, it wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a $4 billion productivity kill shot. And here's the part you need to pay attention to. Your utility bill is no longer tied to how much power you use. It's decoupled. Residential electricity rates have officially broken away from standard inflation because of grid stabilization fees. Last summer, the average peak cooling cost hit $784. That's a 14% jump. I've seen the data and it blew me away. We're seeing a world where energy costs are the primary driver of structural inflation. It's a hidden tax on your existence. You're not just paying for light, you're paying a ransom to keep your living room at 72 degrees. The math stops working, and when math stops working, economists start sweating. And let's be real, so should you. Here's where it gets strange. We're seeing a 20% price divergence emerging between what I call shielded and exposed assets. If your home relies on a standard HVAC system and a shaky grid, you're exposed. If you have passive cooling or geothermal, you're shielded. Zillow just integrated a thermal equity score as a primary search filter. Think about that next time you look at your property value. If your score is low, you're not just living in a house, you're living in a thermal liability. So, when a utility becomes a luxury, a new market is born. And this is the part nobody's talking about. Who is currently building the toll booths for the air you breathe? Now, this is the part I find wild. While most people are staring at their thermostats in a panic, Wall Street is going shopping. They aren't looking for views or school districts anymore. They're looking for cool zone assets. We're talking about institutional giants like Brookfield and Blackstone. They've increased their temperate portfolio allocations by 40% in the last quarter alone. They aren't just buying houses, they're buying the infrastructure of comfort. Here's the deal. We are witnessing the birth of thermal as a service. These firms are acquiring depreciated Sunbelt assets, retrofitting them with proprietary geothermal grids, and then get this, transitioning cooling into a monthly subscription model. You won't own your AC, you'll subscribe to a thermal comfort plan. It's the ultimate toll booth. If you don't pay, the temperature rises. It sounds like science fiction, but the Cooling Equity Act just put a 30% federal tax credit on the table for exactly this kind of subterranean heat exchange. This is creating what the UN is already calling thermal apartheid. It's a world where your net worth determines your internal body temperature. We're seeing data centers, the brains of our AI economy, spending 42% of their entire budget just on cooling. Cloud providers are already hitting users with dynamic thermal surcharges when the weather gets hot. Your digital life is getting more expensive because the physical world is overheating. It's a global web of costs that all lead back to one thing: the commoditization of cold. And honestly, this is the most interesting part of the whole story. We think this is a modern crisis, a product of the 21st century, but what if I told you the blueprints for this $15 trillion trap were written 2 centuries ago? What if I told you we've seen this movie before, and it started with a man they called the Ice King? Let's zoom out for a second. Travel back to the early 1800s. There was a man named Frederick Tudor. Most people thought he was insane. Why? Because he wanted to sell ice to people in the tropics. He'd cut blocks of frozen water from ponds in Massachusetts, pack them in sawdust, and ship them to Calcutta and Havana. He was literally shipping cold to places that had never seen it. Tudor didn't just sell ice. He commoditized a status symbol. If you had ice in your drink in a tropical port, you were the elite. You had conquered nature. Today, we are seeing an 85% correlation between Tudor's trade and the modern thermal market. We've shifted from shipping physical blocks of ice to trading passive cooling credits and subterranean access. But the logic is identical. Cold is the new gold. It's a survival necessity that's being rebranded as a premium asset. I know it sounds dramatic, but look at the data. The market for passive cooling materials, the stuff that keeps a building cool without power, has exploded by 84%. We're seeing mycelium-based insulation and high-tech subterranean heat sinks becoming the new granite countertops. They are the new markers of wealth. In the 19th century, having ice made you a king. In 2026, having a house that stays 70 degrees during a brownout makes you a winner in the new economy. So if cold is the new gold, then where is the new California? Where is the gold rush heading? And more importantly, is your zip code on the right side of the thermometer? Because the map of wealth is being redrawn as we speak. It's called the Great Upset. For the first time in 50 years, Rust Belt cities like Duluth and Buffalo are recording positive net migration. 1.2 million people a year are moving internally within the US, searching for what experts call recovery belts. These are the places where the math still works, where the grid is stable and the air doesn't require a subscription. The Sun Belt isn't going to disappear, but it's transforming. It's becoming an expensive heat trap for the middle class, while the wealthy retreat into shielded enclaves. So, how do you navigate this? First, look at the infrastructure. The 450,000 geothermal HVAC units being installed every year aren't just a trend, they're a hedge. The 30% federal tax credit for subterranean heat exchange is the government's way of telling you that the surface is becoming too expensive to maintain. If you're buying property today, you aren't just buying a view of the ocean, you're buying a shield against the sun. The map of wealth has been redrawn, and it's cooler than you think. We've spent a century chasing the sun, but the smart money? The smart money is heading for the shade. Think about that next time you see your grocery bill or your homeowner's insurance premium. The price of the Sunbelt dream just went up, and the bill is coming due. If the world's largest pension funds are pulling out of unshielded real estate, what does that tell you? In the new economy, the most expensive thing you can own isn't a luxury car or a designer watch. It's the right to be comfortable. The Ice Age is for sale, and it's got a $15 trillion price tag. See you tomorrow?